Patrick Peterson doesn't still play for the mighty Vikings. Leader Fan Radio Network.
Did you see the game?
And KFAN.com. The Friday Football Beast is live. It's local. And it starts right now on a fairly muggy Friday afternoon here in the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. Guardsy is on hockey duty this afternoon and evening, so he is out. Brett Blakemore is in that chair after presiding over program password and other things between noon and 3 o'clock. My name is Dan Barreiro, former Inkster Wretch, newspaper of the Twin Cities. Let's do an informal poll via the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line, which has been rebooted. Hip Cricket, right on time today. I want to congratulate Hip Cricket. Maybe they're figuring it out. 64686. If you would like to reach us and perhaps even answer this question. If you are a regular listener of this program, did you have, if I didn't bring it up, would you have any awareness that I'm not a lifelong radio guy, that I started my career as an ink-stained wretch? Long time ago, wrapped it up in the early 2000s. I think it was 2001 or 2002. Might have been 4. I don't even remember. But even if it's 4, what's this year, 2026?
It is.
So it's over 20 years. How many of you had no idea other than when I bring it up? Because I run into people who associate me only with radio. Some of it is, I'm sure, age, especially. Like if you're a listener and you're 30, you probably never even knew I existed outside of radio, right? You had no idea I was an ink-stained wretch when you came here.
I mean, I wouldn't have normally. When I moved to on air, the thing they told me was everyone in the building started in your spot except for Dan Barreiro. But it's not a shot.
Yeah.
It was just like, that's just a different path.
Yeah, it was a very different path, yeah.
Yeah. So I did know.
We'll have an informal survey that will be offered up via the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line. We will be here until 6:30. No summer hours for us. We're going straight through. It's going to be live. It's going to be local, start to finish. Moving some pieces around today on the Beast. Lavelle, 5:30 regular on Fridays, is asking to join at the bottom of this hour, 3:30. I think he's got some other duties that were getting in the way of being with us at his usual time. And fellow marathoner Ben Gessling will join at 4:30. We know that Lavelle confirmed with us how many steps he got in last Sunday, traveling between, wait for it, Target Field and Target Center. I got a kick out of that, as we talked about on, I believe, Monday's program. So he knows exactly how Ben Gessling feels to run a marathon, because that's essentially what Lavelle did to put together a column that attempted to celebrate the Savannah Bananas and the Minnesota Lynx, because both those games are going on at about the same time. In the case of Savannah Bananas, it's not really a game. It is, of course, an exhibition as well. Done as a Society might be a part of today's festivities. I'm debating whether to go hardcore A section in our open hour after the top 5 at 5. It is, after all, a weekend show. It's a Friday show. But then there's a part of me that says, I don't have to be casual all the time on a Friday. I've been putting this subject off several weeks, and I want to get to it. So if I don't now, I'm going to start running out of days next week, because after Thursday next week, I'm going to take a few days off to prepare myself mentally and physically, of course, for the great Minnesota get-together as well. Vikings open preseason activity. Most of you know by now, tomorrow, high noon, Central Time in New York or Jersey against the Giants. Our coverage will begin, they tell me, at 10 a.m. What time tonight is the world premiere, 2026 world premiere of the new and improved Paul Charchian Fantasy Show. It even has a new special name, does it not?
It's a Fantasy Football World.
Yes.
Is the name. Yes, I believe it's 7 after
Fan and a Man in the Air.
Yes.
Okay, so 7 o'clock tonight. And part of the reason for that is because of the early preseason game and the pregame that must precede it, the usual time on Saturday just wasn't going to work. But they did want to get it in on air on the flamethrower. So that'll be tonight, we presume, at about 7 p.m. if you are accurate on that. KOC keeps telling us that we are going to see everybody, although everybody I don't believe includes Justin Jefferson, but maybe he will be included. The number 1 and number 2 quarterbacks are both supposed to be available. The assumption is Kyler will not play long, but he will play. A number of other starters will play. J.J. McCarthy will play, unless, I guess, he pouts, which is certainly a possibility. But I mentioned at the top of the program, because I am a shock jock after all, that it is too bad that Patrick Peterson doesn't still play for the Vikings leader. Most of our audience are familiar with the name. Standout, big-time defensive back, safety, I should say cornerback for a long time. Spent some time here in Minnesota. He was a weekly guest on Bumper to Bumper. We were never really able to do our, goodbye segment with him, unfortunately, but he was excellent with us. He is now retired. He's doing a lot of football analysis. And he was asked the other day about Kyler Murray, a former teammate of his, in Minnesota. I think they played together. You can look it up, but I think it was 2020. They were there together. And I thought this quote was pretty accurate. I don't think this is his last chance, but this might be his last best chance as far as with the team that he has around him. Most teams that are quarterback needy are bad teams for the most part, so they're going to need more pieces to fit around them again. He's in a very fortunate situation to be going to a quarterback needy team that has everything already around him. I think that's a good way to put it. His point on it not necessarily being Murray's last chance is Sam Darnold. Quote, I don't think this will be I don't think this will be Kyler's last opportunity, just because you got to go back to Sam Darnold. Now he's on his 5th team, but he did make the best of his opportunity in Minnesota. And the Peterson comments intrigued me a little bit, in part because of, shall we say, some other things that over the years Patrick Peterson has said about Kyler Murray. If you go back far enough, in fact, you can find this quote. Kyler Murray don't care about nobody but Kyler Murray. He got heat for that, including from Murray, and then was asked to sort of explain his opinion or to back off on it, Sirwanga it, backpedal it, or double down on it. He claimed that he didn't think he was saying anything all that controversial. Quote, what I meant by my comment was when you're a franchise quarterback, you have to carry yourself a certain way. So if you're having bad body language, pouting, moping on the sideline, what type of energy do you think feeds off to your teammates? Pretty frontal. Now, is that the last word on Kyler Murray? Does that mean we now know the Vikings have made a terrible mistake in affording him this opportunity and committing to him to the degree that they have? No. But it's absolutely part of the Kyler Murray saga. It cannot be sugar-coated or forgotten now when it's convenient. We have that tendency to do that in this market. No, this is the beginning. Now, maybe if he struggles, then we will bring out all the bad stuff that we've been saving as justification. But until that happens, we're not going to do it. And we've said this a million times on this show. Players always have the last word. Kyler Murray will have the last word on how he is viewed here compared to how he might have been viewed in Minnesota as well. So it is, by the way, he also said back then, this was in 2022 when this came up, that he had texted Murray after he made his criticism and basically saying, I'm just trying to sort of help him grow as a player. Here's what he said. Again, not backing off at all. Kyler cares about himself because he's not putting the team first. When you make a bad throw and you come off the sideline, you're dropping your shoulders. How do you think the defense feels? If our starting quarterback don't have any energy, no fire, that we can win this game, how can we? That's what I meant about Kyler, caring about Kyler. I didn't mean any disrespect in any fashion or form, and I might not be his mentor, but these are the things, tips that can help him be a better football player in the long run. I do look forward to talking to him because I see a ton of talent in him, and these mannerisms are alarming. I'm just saying something that most people may be afraid to tell him. It's no secret. Everybody sees it. You see it every time they're on television. You see Kyler pouting, cursing out the head coach, calling out the offensive scheme. I didn't say that. He did. So I think, fairly speaking, you put all this in the hopper. And you don't have to have it on the front burner, one could say. But it's part of the perception that haunts Kyler Murray. It's part of the reason he's in the position he's in. Now, again, infrastructure not so good. And you can go all the way back to, we all had fun with it at the time, the contract clause, right? The study clause that got leaked. And then ultimately the Cardinals, I think, removed it, I want to say. Because I think they even admitted that it was a mistake, knowing that there's a chance it was going to be leaked. It falls under the classification of, if you have to put it in there, or if you feel like you have to put it in there, and then it becomes public, it's not going to serve whatever purpose you thought you were gaining by putting it there in the first place. There have to be other ways. Either you don't extend his deal, or you talk to him about that behind the scenes. You put that kind of thing in a contract where it's more likely to become public. Is anybody served by it, in all honesty? Because if the player feels shamed, what are the chances you're going to get the best out of that player? And there were other people who also thought that it was an exaggeration. It was not particularly fair to the QB. But all of these, and you're going to see a bunch of stories. In fact, I think Mark Craig had one today in the Star Tribune, leading up to the regular season opener, that will be deeply reported profiles on him. And if they are truly deeply reported, they're going to get into some of this stuff. And I mean, one of the other things you're going to hear, either publicly or privately, is that there are a number of players, when they have been contacted to talk to reporters here about Kyler, they're saying no, they don't want to talk about him, which in of itself, I think, is a little puzzling or a little bit perplexing. And the alarm bell went off in my head a little bit. It's like, well, why would that be? Is it they don't want to tell the truth? Is it personality conflict? I don't know. But Patrick Peterson was a hell of a pro player. Not the last word on everything, but it's a good reminder that when people make it sound like none of the bad things that happened to Kyler in Arizona are his fault, that it's all on infrastructure, it's all on what's around him, that might be a little too convenient for a team that wants to believe, and for his fans who also probably want to believe in the player. There's smoke. That doesn't mean it has to turn into another fire here. This could be exactly the fresh start that works for him, as Peterson suggests is possible. Infrastructure is better here. Maybe he matures. Maybe deep down he thinks Patrick Peterson might have a point, even if he doesn't want to admit it, and maybe he tries to deal with that and do a better job of that here. All of it is in the hopper, but I thought it was interesting coming, as I said, from a former, highly respected veteran member of your Minnesota Vikings football team. Let's get our first pause in. We're a little bit late. As I said, Lavelle at the bottom of the hour. Lots to get to with him. I don't think he went to Iowa, did he? I don't think he went. He previewed it.
Tough ticket.
We'll find out. Yeah, very tough ticket. We'll get to a little bit of that, and who knows what else with Lavelle. If you have questions for him, Bradshaw and Bryant, KFAN text line 64686. Back in just a second.
Bumper to Bumper with Dan Barreiro on the Fan.
From the 1-800-ASK-GARY Traffic Center.
Leonard Skinner will be there August 16th. Motley Crue, August 21st. You can get complete details on all of our upcoming shows on the concert page, KFAN.com. Keyword calendar.
Who is replacing Rod Stewart at the State Fair? Do we know? Is that just an open date right now?
That's controversial.
He announced, was it last week? He's pulling out because of a heart procedure. I think he's going to be out an extra month and has postponed a series of concerts. Want to also remind you that programming director Chad Abbott let us know of something I actually was already aware of because I heard it via the project today, the Paul Allen Project, that on tomorrow's radio broadcast, or I assume simulcast broadcast, JJ, not McCarthy, Justin Jefferson will be part of the radio crew. How about that?
Here's a question. Speaking of JJ, not McCarthy, do we still have to call him Jets? Or can we just go back to saying JJ?
Because of the demotion?
What?
Yeah,
I'm asking questions.
I think it's still too confusing.
Stick with Jets.
Yeah, I think unless you just want to start calling McCarthy 9, which we've done before, you could do that too. To the question I started the program with, have known you before this radio deal. There was no internet or social media, so as a 12-year-old kid, pure pleasure was reading the Star Tribune sports page. Now they want $5, Lavelle, for a Sunday paper, and there's nothing in it. Wow. I wonder how Lavelle will take that, our 3:30 guest.
Man.
When I read it as a kid, my dad referred to as that Dan Barreiro, as in D-A-M-N, not D-A-N. And I have a great story about you and your writing at the Star Tribune about the Vikings in '87, and it involves Scott Studwell. Well, if it involves Scott Studwell, it was probably pretty nasty and pretty controversial. That part is for sure. Let me get to a couple more. I'll try to not use the ones, read the ones that are too self-serving. Let me see if I can head down here. I'm 26 years old, would have had no idea you were an ink-stained wretch in a prior life if not for you mentioning it on the air. I'm 33, writes Sean. Started listening to the Fan about 5 years ago, but as a kid driving around the car with my dad in the late 90s, early 2000s, I remember my dad putting your show on, and I vaguely remember him referring to as that newspaper guy. Yeah, well, that's true. I can still picture your silhouette at the top of your column when you had hair. I remember the dark-haired, mustachioed sports columnist and, of course, co-conspirator in the Denny Green smear campaign. I'm 50, used to hate your articles and loved Sid's. Now that I've grown up, I realize you tell it like it is and love the show. The Sid, like Ducky and Bunny earlier in the day, I can do without. Well, to each their own. Is the Zone still on tomorrow? In the Zone on tomorrow?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. So it'll be 8 to 10, and right at 10, Vikings football Saturday. And I get to leave.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
It's even better.
I'm out of there.
I've been listening since 1995-ish. I remember Kevin Harlan doing Wolves games, and I remember Common being you and Chad's producer. I may or may not have heard Get in That Chair, Stay in That Chair live. That's Andy in St. Paul. Common was not our producer. He was our, I guess you could say, well, he was in the same chair you were in. What do we even call that job now? Technical producer?
Producer, sidekick.
He was
whatever.
sidekick for sure.
Yeah.
There's no way he was going to produce, and he barely tolerated us when he was sidekicking. And eventually he didn't tolerate us anymore when we realized he was barely paying attention to anything that we were indeed saying. Used to read your articles in grade school, writes John from Playa Vista, California. I can see the ink blotch profile pic they used to put on you in the paper next to your column. Go ahead and go hardcore A section in the 5 if you'd like. I was born in 2006, writes 612 guy. Would have no clue that you ever wrote. I remember my grandparents getting the paper early on in my life and would look forward to reading the comics with my grandmother when I visited them. Love the show. As not one of us moved in 2017 from the south suburbs of Chicago, I had no clue. My only regret was I didn't begin listening until summer of 2018. Mark and Hibbing, I followed Dan Minnesota, so I've known a long time ago. Yeah, Dan's the historian guy, so he has alluded and linked to a lot of stuff from back in the day. I'm 71 and remember you as a writer for a paper. Well, that would be the right age. That would make absolutely some sense. Dan, I always picture, this from Papa Taco, who's 44. I always picture the Star Tribune photo, and the one thing that stood out was the bald head and the mustache. Well, eventually, I'm trying to figure out the last, when I actually used a photo, whether I was bald yet. I'm not sure I was, but I was probably fairly close to that. I would have no idea, writes 320 guy. So there's a lot of them in which that was the case. It's not all that surprising at all. Not surprising in the least. When it's this long, I am curious because that's a generation basically, right? 20 years, isn't that considered a generation? So it's a long way from here to there, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And the more self-serving ones, I will say a thank you to each of those individuals, but I won't sicken the rest of the audience by reading too many of them on air. Lavelle E. Neal III is still an ink-stained wretch. And we're going to catch up with him on a number of subjects a bit earlier than usual. Guestling is scheduled for 4:30. If you have questions for Lavelle, 64686, the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN toxic text line. At least it was a bit toxic yesterday. But keep those questions coming. Done as before, we are done. A very good variety and mix and some reaction to what we talked about early regarding some of the comments from former Arizona Cardinal teammate of Kyler Murray, Patrick Peterson. So I think it'll be a good live and local show, even on a Friday, all the way until 6:30. Don't go away.
You're listening to Barreiro on The Fan.
Download the free iHeartRadio app. Search for the Solid Verbal.
You already listen. Well, now you can watch The Fan. Subscribe to the KFAN YouTube channel for exclusive videos, in-depth takes, initials and password games, and behind-the-scenes content. You can search KFAN on YouTube. Hit subscribe today.
Longtime texter Brett writes, I did that job at the Fan. Back then it was called board operator. That's when the despicable, in my opinion, she was not nice to me, Lorna Gladstone was the boss. Well, we've told that story before. I don't know if our next guest knows it. Lavelle E. Neal III is joining us via the Connecticut Water Systems Hotline. Lorna was a big shot radio programmer brought in by Mick Anselmo to take care, to clean up the Fan, get us on the map. And one of her first decisions was to try to get rid of Chad Barreiro. And she tried hard. In fact, she offered that drive time in the afternoon to Bors and Bernstein out of Chicago, Illinois. And
what?
Yes, it's 100% true. And they were not interested. But I guess it's possible if they had said yes, that might have been the end. That might have been, I might still be an ink-stained wretch, I guess. But yeah, I used it as bulletin board material. But yeah, she tried to, she wasn't here very long. But when she was here, that was one of her big moves, or one of her attempts was to get rid of us in the afternoon.
She didn't want to deviate from the toy department.
Is
that it?
I honestly don't remember, because I don't necessarily remember arguing with her that much. It wouldn't surprise me. The irony is she ended up back in Chicago, and then she tried to get me, can't remember what the job was, but it had some connections with like Bears, like pregame stuff and a couple other things, and even maybe a stint, and that never actually developed into anything. So maybe she didn't hate me completely. Maybe she just didn't understand us, or she thought, okay, I got to try to get the state. The station wasn't on the map at that point to the same degree. So maybe that was her idea of, okay, this will be a big splash. We'll bring in these big shots from Chicago, this very successful duo, including a former writer, obviously, in Terry Boers, and see where it would go. So yeah, that's true. That would have to be part of the fan. Whoever writes the book on the Fan, that would have to be part of the history.
That's remarkable. I've never heard that story. I didn't know that there was an attempt to bring in those two. That is a legendary sports talk show pairing in Chicago.
Correct.
Boers and Bernstein.
Correct.
They were a staple.
Yes.
I believe WSCR.
Back in the day.
Over a decade. I think it was over
question.
a decade.
Oh, yeah, they were on for a long time. Yeah, they were on for a very long time. And then,
you guys are just fortunate. I mean, I got here in '98, so I don't know when all this was going down. Was it right around that time?
Well, it's a good question, because
I got here in '97, actually.
I started at the Fan on a more of a full-time basis, I think, in '92, and I honestly don't know. Chad's much better at remembering those kind of dates. It would have to have been mid to late, 90s, somewhere. I would say mid, maybe 1994, 95, but it had to have been in that stretch of time. That's true.
Wow. That's all I can say is wow. Didn't hear that. Didn't know that.
Long time ago.
That's crazy.
That's a lot of water under the bridge since then. And in fact, I think Lorna has passed away. I'm pretty sure. In any case, did you go to Dyersville, or did you just preview Dyersville?
I just previewed it. I'm actually out of town this week. I'm at a convention in Atlanta. So,
gotcha. Okay.
I did not go to Dyersville. Bobby Nightingale drove down.
Mm-hmm.
He basically never stayed he didn't spend the night in Dyersville. He drove down day of, and drove back afterwards. And we had a photographer down there. So sounds like it was a great experience for the players. I was asked to write about the logistics of like a one-day road trip. Coming in for one game, then leaving, which reminded me of, I don't think I told you guys this story. I may have told it on the morning show. That someone said that Twins ever had to do this before. I said, well, they do it regularly during spring training. I mean, they go out for a day and come back, but, it's a shorter distance. And in a lot of cases, there's not as many people. So this is a little bit bigger than like a one-day spring trip, but definitely kind of different than a road trip. But there was a year where the Twins had to make up a game in New York. They had to fly out to New York and make up a rained-out game against the Yankees. And I remember I ended up staying at a team hotel just out of convenience, and it was near Carnegie Hall. And so there was a cigar lounge near Carnegie Hall named the Carnegie Club.
Mm-hmm.
So I get in the day before, I go to the Carnegie Club, and I'm sitting there drinking an overpriced scotch and smoking one of my cigars, and I'll never forget this. Yeah, I guess this is what made the one-day road trip so crazy. An Englishman comes and sits down next to me, and we start talking, and I found out he's from Tottenham. Oh, yeah, Blake is there today. He'll like this part.
Yeah.
So he's from Tottenham, and so
he just perked
I'm
up.
talking like, I don't know, this is like the mid-2010s or something like that. And I start going in, oh, your team, they're like the New York Mets of the EPL. Despite everything you try to do, they never win. And they just so much bad. Like we started talking about the EPL, and then he goes, no, you know what about the EPL? Where are you from, my man? I said, well, I'm from Minnesota. And there was a pause, and he stares at me, and he goes, I've never met a black Swede before.
That's too good.
Not missing a beat, I replied, my name is Lars Robinson. It's a pleasure to meet you.
That's too good. That's too good. That's outstanding. By the way, you said you're in Atlanta. Texter, Danny, in Atlanta, wants you to know that he lives there, works at a speakeasy in Decatur called Roaring Social. If you like good bourbon, scotch, tequila, vodka, etc., tell Lavelle to come visit tonight and ask for Danny. We also have live music. There you go.
Wow. Well, actually, tonight's always the Friday of these. This is the actually the NABJ convention, which I think you're familiar with.
Yes, I am.
Yeah. And so Friday night is always the big night where the sports task force has its big scholarship party jam. So we're actually taking a shuttle bus over to some place where they're having, I think it's called the Roxy, where they're having a big party. It's a fundraiser for scholarships to give out to aspiring young sports writers. So I am going to hear music. I'm probably going to have some bourbon. I don't know if it's going to be any good. We'll see. But in Atlanta, anything's possible. Decatur, I don't know where exactly Decatur, Georgia is. I didn't know that was in the realm in the area of Atlanta. If I get bored, I guess at 1 or 2 a.m., maybe I'll venture out since the speakeasy. You can't be a speakeasy and not close early. So
no, hell no.
I'm guessing it would go on for a while, right?
Yeah, at least. Well, when I lived in Atlanta a long time ago, the bars closed at 4. And sometimes it was even later than that. So you can imagine that what the nightlife was like. I don't know if it's any different now.
Well, let's see. I'm looking at a map here. Decatur is due west of Atlanta. It looks like the same distance that I would drive from the Twin Cities to Hudson, maybe. So maybe it's not that bad of a drive.
Yeah, you might be right.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't remember where Decatur is. I think it's drivable for sure. To get back to the Field of Dreams, I watched a decent amount of it. The game itself obviously provided not all that much theater. It was certainly it was very one-sided. But I thought, again, if you viewed it in a larger context as an event and just for the aesthetic, I think it went about and looked about as good as baseball could have possibly hoped.
I thought so. And the fact that it's grown there now.
Yes.
If you remember, this is the third edition of the event. It was the White Sox and Yankees in the first ever Field of Dreams. And if you remember, Tim Anderson actually hit a walk-off homer in that game. And I believe the next year was the Cubs, and I want to see the Reds. And then there's been a pause. And now they're back, I think, for the first time in 4 years.
Correct.
But since then, those first two were played in temporary stadiums.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Since then, they have built an 8,000-seat permanent stadium. There is a youth sports complex next to it. So they're built out the area. Actually, the stadium's going to be used for the Decatur Dreamers. They're joining the Northwoods League next year. And they're going to be playing out of Dyersville. So there's some infrastructure around now. The Saints played there on Tuesday. On Wednesday, there was a national high school All-American All-Star game there in which Torrey Hunter managed one team and Jim Thome managed the other. Yes. So baseball's built this out to be kind of a week to celebrate baseball, and being a baseball purist, I'm all for anything that celebrates the game and connects with the past.
Yes.
and tugs on the nostalgia and the Field of Dreams movie and Kevin Costner and having a catch and players walking out of the cornfield. It's like you kind of step outside and you hear. It's one of those days where like the ghost of baseball past have the reunion. When you have events like that being held. And I thought it was well done. And just reading about it, it seems like the players are really, really eager to play in the game and be part of that atmosphere. Didn't mind the one-day trip. Tommy Nance, traded to the Twins, wasn't aware they were going until I guess he was looking at his schedule and finding out they had to go play at Dyersville, and told his wife, wow, I get to go play there, Mm-hmm. That was just really neat. Buxton playing catch with his son, Cody Clemens playing catch with the Rocket afterwards. It's corny, but you're in the cornfields. So what?
Well, and the aesthetic, like I said, it looks beautiful.
Yeah.
The way they have built the thing up
Yeah.
to a place where it feels a little bit more permanent. Can we clear something up, though? Because I find it hard to believe that when little Lavelle, what was your nickname growing up? Scooter.
Yeah.
When little Scooter was heading outside in the summer, I can't see you saying, "Hey, let's go have a catch." You said, "Let's go play catch." Same in the shadows of the U.S. Steel Mill, Open Hearth number 4, little Danny Barreiro, Gary, Indiana. We're not saying let's go have a catch. We're saying let's go play catch. Can we agree on that?
No, we said let's play catch, but have a catch is kind of connected with the school, with the theme and
the movie,
and the movie and everything. So you can have your have a catch once a year, I guess. No, it's play catch.
Play catch.
Dad, you want to play catch?
Yeah, you play catch.
Mom, you want to play?
Yeah,
I used to
exactly.
play catch with my mom when I played with my dad.
Exactly.
That wasn't around,
That's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of it. For sure. Let me read you a text from an individual who said he was there last night. 612 guy writes, "I was at the Field of Dreams game. It was the weirdest MLB game I've ever been to. It was completely awesome, but you didn't know if you could cheer because it was so quiet. And there were a lot of dirtbags there." By that, he seems to mean corporate America, in his mind, was too well represented, and the food was disappointing. For the record, for you, no quesadillas to be found. So, was there too much corporate stuff there? I mean, you want to believe it's just all these every man and every woman fans and kids and so forth there, but like everything else, was there a big corporate presence to your knowledge?
I wasn't aware of that. I guess I have to be there to experience it. Yeah. But, I mean, based on the points he made, if you take a step back and think about it, it makes perfect sense, right? That once Major League Baseball gets involved with an event, there's going to be corporate firepower infused throughout the presentation. So I guess, John Deere is like the title sponsor. So and I don't know how often Deere sponsors other sporting events. So maybe this is like their one big shot, and they're going to contribute everything they can in order to have a presence. Yeah. And make people aware that, this is John Deere's thing. So that doesn't surprise me. I mean, that's the way of things now. You go to big events. I mean, I've been to the Ryder Cup. I've been to Hazeltine for Women's U.S. Open. I've been to 3 or 4 times to TPC for the 3M Open. And you want to see what corporate firepower looks like. You look at those tents. Yeah. You look at who's sponsoring them. You look at the people that are in those tents. And you're like, half those people don't care that there's a sporting event. They're there because it's a big event. Yes. Yes. That's just the reality, man. And it's better that they pay for it than we do, I guess.
Yeah, I guess that's one way to look at it. Regarding,
although we may end up paying for it in the end.
Well, yeah, that's often the case. That's also true. Do you have any fear that the team itself, if we try to get back to the baseball, that we're coming perilously close to sort of fading away in this thing? We've lost 8 of 12. We're down to 60 and 63. We can't be eliminated because, we can't. That's the nature of the wild card in the American League. But are there some alarm bells here going that we might be on the brink here of not necessarily staying in this race?
Well, they're not hitting, and it's going to be the reason why they don't make the playoffs now. It's not going to be. It's weird because we lamented this bullpen from the jump, and the stark contrast between last year's unhittable group. We didn't realize what we had when we had Griffin Jacks, and Louis Varland, and Joan Duran. We did not realize what we had in those guys, and the drop off was precipitous. And it was hard to watch. In the weeks leading up to the trade deadline, I saw the stat. It was like from June 28th up to the trade deadline, the bullpen actually had like a sub-3 ERA. They actually were doing their job. It's been the offense. It's been the guys driving in the runs, which is odd to say because all we heard during the first half of the season was 27 surprising offense. The Twins have been brilliant with runners in scoring in position. The Twins are one of the top 5 teams in offense in baseball and tops in the American League. But that's kind of the chickens have come home to roost now. They're not getting clutch hits. They're getting guys on base. God, that Sunday game in Milwaukee when they had the bases loaded twice in late innings. Someone's got to be a professional hitter there. Dan, if you're batting, and I believe this, and you can change the number to your liking because I've been screaming about this for like 15 years, that if you're like batting 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, or maybe even 7th, if you play the game the right way, and that doesn't mean, grand slams and dramatic home runs. That means putting the ball in play, touching the ball when the guy's on third, just getting the ground ball to get a run home, moving a run over, just choking up on the bat, hitting the ball where it's pitched, and just knocking one where they ain't and scoring runs. If you just play the game the right way, you could fall over 75 RBI in the season. Now, what you do with those last 25 RBI is how you determine if you're a 100 RBI guy or not. But I always believe that if you play the game the right way, the game will reward you. There's been so many moments in the last 6-7 weeks where the Twins needed someone to just play the game the right way. Hit the ball to the opposite field. Choke up with 2 strikes. Just put the bat on the ball, for goodness sake, when someone's on base. If you need to move someone over, have professional at bats, especially when in scoring position.
Yeah.
I think that's dwindled over these last few weeks.
No question.
And I think, and the remarkable thing is that when it's said and done, it's going to be the offense that's going to kill this team more so than the bullpen, I think. I gotta remember that's actually a column idea.
It's a good idea.
Because it doesn't get easier now. They got 2 more games against Philadelphia. Then they got Atlanta. A little bit of break with San Diego. They're in the rears, and you got the A's. But, August 28th through September 13th, they're playing division opponents. And that's going to be like their last stand. Chicago for 3, Detroit for 3, at Chicago for 3, Detroit for 3, home against Cleveland for 3. And that's before the Yankees come to town. That's probably going to tell the tale of the 2026 Minnesota Twins. If they can do some damage within the division, hang in there in the wild card, as long as they only have like one team, I haven't looked at the standings. As long as they're chasing just one team, maybe 2, if you're a couple of games back, you can eat up that deficit. But once you start falling behind 3 or 4 teams,
that's true. That's the key.
It really gets tough, especially when the schedule is starting to shrink on them, man. So, but they've got to be more efficient at the plate. They're just leaving too many guys on base and not getting hits. Like Bobby Knight, there was another game. What game was that? I cringed when I read it. One of the Baltimore games where Bobby Knight wrote that they were 1 for 11. With the runners at second or third. I was like, my God.
Yeah, that's rough.
Can't go through that and not consider yourself a threat to be a postseason team. So that's what I'm feeling right now about this team.
Lavelle E. Neal III joining us this week from Atlanta, Georgia. Did you actually count up the number of steps you took traveling between Target Field and Target Center, as you alluded to in the Monday column? We had some fun with that on Monday's show.
No, I did not. I knew when I typed that sentence that I was going to get a rise out of people.
You succeeded.
Because it probably takes, 5-10 minutes to get left. You leave the press box. It can't take more than 10 minutes.
No.
To get out of the press box in Target Field and get courtside to Target Center. Mm-hmm. It's not.
Yeah.
So it was written with humor in mind, and
it was succeeding.
I did not know that I did not realize that it was going to activate you the way it did, but I was entertained while listening to the radio.
It was great.
Yeah,
I appreciate the material.
Funny.
Yeah, everybody won. You got the rise out that you wanted to, and I got 10 minutes of material. It worked out. In fact, it was, I think, or might have even been the first segment of the Monday show, so it worked out very well for pretty much everybody. One last quick item. Football. It's back, as you know. It's the first big preseason weekend. There've already been some games Thursday. I don't know if I assume there's some tonight. Vikings open in New York against the Giants tomorrow. Noon game, 10 o'clock pregame here on the Fan. Justin Jefferson, by the way, is going to be part of the broadcast crew, apparently, for preseason game number 1. Allegedly, we're going to see both some of Kyler and some of JJ. What did you make of the timing of the KOC declaration? Did it come earlier than you thought? It's obvious that he was going to be the guy starting, but what did you make of it, and how much do you want to see of the quarterbacks who apparently matter this year, the main guy and the backup, at least for now, in the preseason?
I wasn't shocked by the timing. I think our Chip Scoggins predicted today. I think he predicted August 14th would be the day that they would have to make a decision on the quarterback by.
Yes, that was the day he picked.
KLC made them. Yep, and I think KLC jumped him out from a few days. Maybe he did a delivery so Chip wouldn't look like he was clairvoyant. I don't know, but I didn't mind it, and everything was trending in that direction. We were all focused on the percentage of snaps. How many snaps was JJ getting versus Kyler? And can we get any cues as to what Kelsey's thinking about in terms of the competition through that? But I think Andrew Kramer actually wrote something last Tuesday or Wednesday, kind of breaking down some of the stuff they saw, the Vikings saw that increased their trust in giving the ball to number 1. So as far as preseason, the way preseason is managed now by coaching staffs, I don't know how much you get out of these games anymore. I think it's for the second string guys and the guys trying to make the club and being like the 56th man or whatever, and so proving they could play on special teams more so than what like the number 1s are doing. I'm more of, I would keep my main guys out of preseason games. Yes, you can still get hurt in practice, but I would just keep my big guys out. I get KLC's probably wants to see Kyler run an offense a little bit, get some snaps, make sure the ball doesn't end up on the ground, make sure he can get the guys out of huddle up to the line of scrimmage, get a play called, and just functionality in that regard in terms of operating the offense. I don't know how much of a big deal we can make out of like numbers and yards and success and drives and touchdowns because they're running stuff they're probably not going to run during the regular season. So I don't put a lot of stock in it because coaching staff don't put a lot of stock in these games anymore. I think the Chargers started it way back in the day when we never saw LaDainian Tomlinson during preseason. Never. And that was back, I think, when they were playing 4 games. And he would never play a single game. And then week 1, there he goes for 205 yards, And so it just strike me. Caleb Williams is not going to play for the Bears. I think Josh Allen's playing. I don't know if that's because they're playing in that brand new stadium that everybody's mad about, because I guess there's a lot of sight lines that
some sight problems. Yes.
There's a lot of obstructed seats there.
Right.
So I don't know how many starting quarterbacks are playing in the first week of games or not. But I think the way training camp has been structured, teams get more out of these group sessions with other joint practices with other teams than they do the preseason games. So when the Ravens come to town next week, I think all eyes should be on how those competitions go and how the Vikings offense fares. And then I say that to myself. I'm just remembering too, it was a year ago, the Patriots were in town for joint practices, and that was the one time I came out to camp and I saw JJ light it up and make all these completions at Addison. And where did I get the Vikings? So what do I know?
Yeah.
About all this.
That's for sure. By the way, for the record, Decatur is about 6 miles straight east and a little north of Atlanta. So it's an easy jog for you. You'd be able to walk, get your steps in. But Danny tells us that the place he recommended that he runs is only open till 1 a.m. So I don't want to, that's unfortunate for you. I mean, maybe Saturday night. Who knows?
The 1 a.m. speakeasy? Oh, come on.
Yeah,
our scholarship party is going to 2 a.m. in the morning here.
Surprised.
So, I don't know if I'm staying till 2. I probably get there about 10, and I may be bored with it all by midnight or so. I've got VIP seats, so I mean my donation for the scholarship program here. So we'll see what it's all about. I haven't been to Atlanta. I was just trying to figure this out. Monday would be the 10th anniversary of my last visit to Atlanta, and the Twins were playing the Braves, and this is before they built Truist Park, wherever they play at. It was back at Turner Field, and Dansby Swanson had been called up and made his major league debut against the Twins, and that was the last time I was in this town. So, so I'm reliving some old memories. There actually was a cigar lounge I visited last night that was around 10 years ago. It's still there, that I was able to sneak out to for about 90 minutes. So, it's hot down here. Heat index over 100. It's
very
95 the last 2 days. But, it's the South. It's Atlanta.
And it's
but I will tell you this, the highlight so far, I went to a reception last night, and they were serving collard greens with braised turkey. And I was like, where else am I going to get collard greens served during a reception than Atlanta? I loved it. It was awesome.
Comfort food, man. There's nothing quite like it. Have a wonderful weekend. Yep. Be safe. And we'll talk next week. Actually, I'm off next Friday, but we'll be in touch.
Well, I'm off. I'm on vacation next week, so I may go off the grid anyway.
That makes some sense. Well, we'll see. We'll certainly see you at the fair, if not before.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Lavelle.
Okay, man.
Lavelle E. Neal III, as we head into the start of the 4 o'clock hour. Ben Gessling in less than 30 minutes.
You're listening to Barreiro on the Fan.
From the 1-800 Ask Gary Traffic Center.
This report is sponsored